Saludos y bienvenidos a todos to the PGP podcast, ready to rock and roll. Another awesome start, another great day of learning, ready to go. Josh Tobar, principal of Memorial Pathway Academy in Garland, ISD, Garland, USA, ready to rock and roll with you. So make sure you take out that pen and paper or your AI tool, whatever it is, because just like the other 51 episodes, we've got more knowledge being dropped. Because remember, you're not alone. There's tons of avenues for you to ensure that you pick up that knowledge to become the best version of yourself, because that's what your kids need. Hey, Dr. Moreno, how are you doing?
Josh, I'm home. Yay! See, my spiders are up here. I am in Houston, Texas, and I love to be home. So I am doing great. I just went outside to go pick up some mail, and it is beautiful outside. Oh my goodness. I wish I had some time to enjoy the weather outside, but I've been working really hard because I am getting ready for my trip to Guatemala. So I gotta get some work done before I head on that plane. But yeah, I'm super excited. I know, Josh, you're not at home because that is not your normal background. Where are you at, sir?
I'm in Orlando right now, enjoying the rain, the humidity, but the fun part of being a papa. I've got my kid that just turned 13. Today, he's a teenager. 13. And it's a beautiful, just seeing the smile. You know what? There's this guy that I know that's from Chicago. I always post pictures with him and his daughter and his family out there. Great stuff. You know, we got Principal Cafela who's promoting his kids. It's about enjoying those times. And you, my friend, also. Those joyful moments and times as a parent that sometimes we forget about sitting in the chair. So thank you for asking that question. And you, how was your weekend?
It was great, Josh. I actually was in South Texas working with the school district and had so much fun. I'm sure you saw it all over my posts. But yeah, I really enjoyed. I was down there working with Dr. Et and supporting some districts down there. But yeah, I had a great time. I'm back at home again, and again working and getting some work done so that I can again prepare for another trip back to Guatemala this time. Yay!
Perfect. And normally this is the time we do the Chinchilagua moment, or we have a spotlight an author. I didn't know how good the Wi-Fi was going to be in the room, so I didn't want to be inviting a lot of individuals here. But just a big quick Chinchilagua moment. Chinchilagua. Jimmy, you know what Chinchilagua is. You know what that is. Chinchilagua is a Mexican game where you line up against the wall with all your family members, all your primos and your tias and your abuelos, and you yell, Chinchilagua y arriba boy, and you jump on top of one person. Then the next person says it, and you jump on top of the next person. And then finally, someone's ankle twists, someone falls down, they crack open their head, grandma comes out with a chancla, you get hit with a coat hanger because you beat up your kindergarten cousin or niece. All right. It's a fun game. We love playing it. And it's just a moment and a thought that it's all fun and games until something happens. Hey, at the very end of this school year, this is the closest and most important time that I reach out to you and say, keep close tabs to your colleagues, to your peers. Keep close tags to those individuals, whether they sit in the chair like I do, or your PLC, your district PLC members that you meet with them in different meetings and different times with the district, because this is the fourth quarter. Testing is almost done. If not, it's done. So it's what practices that you have placed in the machine to ensure that no nonsense happens. You know, those TikTok challenges, those ugly airdrops that happen during lunchtime, all that nonsense. What have you established to ensure that that nonsense doesn't happen, but also to go and check in? Hey, did you have a good day today? Hey, Mrs. Smith, how's it going today? How are things at school? And right now is the time that we need to promote all the positivity that happens in our schools, because this is when people are looking for open positions. They're looking to transfer somewhere else. So what are you putting out there? What are you putting out there on social media to ensure that you get the best quality candidate to come to your school, that team member feels that you're supported within the neighboring district, the neighboring schools, and what are you doing to ensure the success of our awesome profession? So keep in touch with people and make sure those routines that you need in May were established all the way in July. What do you think there, Dr. Moreno?
Oh my God, Josh, you're absolutely right. We're like at the finish line, almost at the finish line, and you know what that means. Kids can feel it. They have this the sixth sense, right? That they know that's, it's almost at the end, and we gotta one still keep them engaged, right? We gotta keep them still focused and still making sure that we're still doing teaching and learning and doing everything that we have to do. Because guess what? I know in Texas, for the most part, we're mostly done except final exams, those kinds of things. And you know what? Kids will get in trouble if you don't do what you need to do. So, and you know what that means? When kids are inactive or distracted, we need our teachers to also be making sure that they're doing great. So, you know what? Absolutely. Kudos to you. And thank you for shout outs for those teachers, because teachers, educators, everybody needs to put full speed ahead. We're almost to the end, and get ready, because guess what? Next year already starts. I'm sure we're already talking about those times, because let me tell you, I remember this time of year for myself, and it has been it's always been one of those things that we got to always keep in the forefront, right? So awesome, awesome, good advice, and that was a
Right.
great chinchilagua moment.
Thank you. And I'm already planning PD. There's this guy I'm talking to, Mary. There's this lady I already got booked for July. We're ready to go rock and roll, because we need to avoid all the undercurrents, and we cannot be out in the perimeter. There's this wise man who always talks about that. And who is that? We're talking about Mr. Culturize himself. We're talking about El Joven de Chicago, El Joven de Iowa. We got none other than Mr. Culturize himself. We got Jimmy Casas in the house. Welcome, Jimmy, to the PGP podcast. Gracias.
Then other than that, I'm having nightmares. My back's hurting when you started talking about that. I was thinking having nightmares back when I was a kid. So good stuff, Josh. I love it.
Thank you.
Dr.
Thank
Moreno,
you.
good to see you again. It's been about 3 minutes since I last saw you, so it's great to see you again.
It's great to see you too, sir. Great to see you.
So we'll start welcoming our awesome guest to the show, Dr. Moreno. Stick, take it away.
Awesome. Awesome, awesome. Well, Jimmy, again, thank you so much. Again, I've seen you on social media. I mean, people talk about you all the time. So you know what? I'm super excited that I get to actually get to know you and get to actually talk to you about all the wonderful things. But before we get into all of that, I need our audience to know a little bit about your background, because some people may not know who Jimmy Casas is, right? So we want to make sure that we provide them with some background. So I know you've been a teacher. You've been an AP, you've been a principal, you've been an author, you're a national speaker, a publisher. Oh my God, like you have all of these things on your resume. And all of these stages in your career, you've received support from your family. So my question to you is, please tell the audience about your life as a young man and your support from your parents. You knew there was a twist on that one, right?
Right. Nice. Well, first of all, let's just get real here and just know that my parents are not formally educated. So my father dropped out of school when he was in 7th grade. My mother dropped out of school when she was in 8th grade. My father spent a lot of time with my mother's family traveling the country as migrantes, right? Traveling, working the fields, working in labor, agricultural, picking tomate, sugar, fresas, you name it, a little bit of everything. And they would travel that circuit starting in Texas. It would go out west, whether it was California or the state of Washington, hitting a lot of states in the Midwest, everything from Michigan to Ohio, but spent a lot of time in Iowa. And they settled in Iowa. And I know they settled in Iowa because, well, I think they wanted what everybody wants, right? They wanted to break the generational cycle of poverty. And 2, they wanted to give their children the opportunity that, and the quality of life that they knew that they were never going to have themselves. And that is, they want to give them the greatest gift that any parent can give their child, right? And that's the gift of an education. So my parents made a lot of sacrifices. I am blessed because both of my parents are still alive. Both my parents still live in Iowa, which is why I spend a lot of time there. Because, obviously, we are blessed that they're still with us, but I want to spend as much time as I possibly can with them whenever I can. So family is very important to our cultura. You know that. It's nothing I'm not sharing with you. I'm not sharing that you don't know already, but so I am blessed. I was telling somebody the other day, this is how blessed I am. My mother comes from a large family, but all of her siblings are all still alive, and all of their husbands and wives are still alive. Isn't that crazy? Think about that just for a second. That's crazy, right? I'm 58 years old, so they're not young, but yeah, So the good news is, I guess that means we got some good genes, right? So some good DNA. So
Absolutely. And you know
yeah.
what? You're so blessed because you're right. I lost my mom, 2 years ago? I'm 54, 53, something like that.
Mhm.
I lose count already. Um, and yeah, I lost my mom 2 years ago, and I lost my dad when I was 10. So,
Yeah. No, I know my
it's
heart aches. I can't even
tough.
imagine. So, yep. So I know it's a blessing. So we'll keep enjoying them. But my parents value education, although, just like a lot of parents, they weren't necessarily always involved. But my mother actually worked. She started her first real job. I always say, well, first of all, my dad's first real job was a custodian of a high school. So
Hmm.
think about that for a second. I always tell people when I was like 5 and 6 and 7, for about a 3-year period there, my father violated every child labor law there was because he would take me to work with him to work as a custodian, right? Which is why I have so much respect for our men and women who work in schools and take care of our
Mhm.
schools and our facilities and so forth. And then my mother was actually, she actually worked in the cafeteria of my elementary school and then eventually became a paraeducator, and actually retired as a paraeducator. So my parents were still heavily involved, even though they weren't formally educated. I think people saw that they still had value to offer. And so anyway, super grateful for that. But they made sure that their children were going to be educated. So yes, we're all college educated. So great.
That is amazing. And thank you so much for opening up and telling your story because it's so important for us to kind of hear who our parents were and how they worked and sacrificed, you know, themselves to make sure that all of you got your education. How many are you in your family?
Though there's three boys.
Three
My parents.
boys.
Yeah. Yeah.
Awesome, awesome. And you know what? I'm sure she's still very proud of you and your siblings, right? Your brothers and your
Yeah. But I
brothers.
know I'm the favorite. Yo soy el favorito. I know.
Ah, I
I'm
love
sure
it.
we all say that, right? But I know I am, so I don't even worry about the other two. So.
That's so
No, no,
awesome. That's
we
awesome.
always tease about that. We always tease, but obviously, yes. In fact, I'm going to get to see them all here in literally 2 weeks. My nephew, my brother's son, is graduating, so we're all going to go there to. So it'll be another family reunion at the Casas
Todos
household
se
there. So.
juntan. Yes,
Mhm.
yes, yes. That's amazing. That's amazing. And congratulations. Congratulations on another graduation, right? Another one
Yeah.
that's coming up. So awesome, awesome.
Yeah.
Josh.
I don't know, Jimmy. It sounds like you're gonna be playing Chinchilagua again. So just be careful on that get together. What's your bag, brother? You just said you're 58, brother. You can't be playing
I'm an old
Chinchilagua.
man, dude. I'm an old man. So I tell people I ain't got many years left. I'm trying to hang on as long as I can.
All right, big shout out to Renisha Davenport. Love, she's a great educator. Hopefully, I see you this coming up at the Fundamental 5 National Conference. Joshua Stamper was here promoting his book. Awesome. Thank you for being here in a podcast before. Oh, no. Hopefully, I didn't freeze. The grand promoter of the Fantastic Four. If you remember, we are part of the 4 shows Fantastic Four with Sean Hurt at 10 o'clock, Shika and Tammy 10:30, Principal Cafele 10:55, and we are the bookend, the PGP podcast. Shika Houston in the house, part of the Fantastic Four. Thank you for being here. Jimmy, let's peel that onion a little bit back. All right. If you know or you don't right now, he's a truthful guy. So I've known this guy. He's come to my previous school and pushed our kids in the past to get them to that next level. Love having them working with this young man. But I want to know, Joven Casas, how are you? And I know a little bit about this. How are you as a student in school? How was your discipline, sir?
And tell the
I should
truth.
have asked you for the questions ahead of time, right? That's what I should have done. Then I probably would have denied being on the show here today. But well, let's see. Obviously, my parents, I shared with you, valued education for us, right? There's no doubt about that. But let's be honest, not everybody necessarily walks in with the same mindset or mentality to be successful in school. Now, let's say this: I always believed that I was a really hard worker. I think I saw that from a very young age. I think my parents saw that. We worked really hard as kids. We pretty much did everything, and work was really important. Work ethic was modeled by my parents, who, like I said, were laborers, and no issues that. And I'll be honest, Josh, I love to work, man. There was never an issue about working. I love to work. I would clean restaurants, hotels, you name it, schools, auditoriums, concession stands. I couldn't wait to get started to work. I had my first paper route at 10. Took 2 paper routes at age 12 and did a double paper route. Started being a bar back at age 14, or a bus boy at that time. Started bartending illegally at 17. And yeah, so that was never an issue. When I was a principal, I still bartended and waited all the way till I was 30 years old. So work has never been an issue for me. But then again, that can also hurt us in some ways too, right? When we kind of lose sight of that. So, but having said that, I mean, certainly struggled through school. I was blessed. I had some really, really awesome elementary teachers, I'll be honest. And middle school was a complete blur to me. Like, I can only name a couple teachers from my middle school. So that's kind of sad if you think about that, right? Like, I bet I could name maybe 4 middle school teachers, maybe 5 now that I think about it. I'm trying to run through my head right now. But I struggled, certainly struggled through school. Didn't really like school very much, to be honest with you. And then eventually, got myself in a lot of trouble through school. And in my senior year of high school, I was expelled from school. Yeah, I just wanted to go work. But it was a blessing, because I tell people, like, when that happened, like, I actually took a job working at Monsanto as a custodian. I worked for a couple of years as a custodian. And even when I finally decided that, and then went out into the world of work, and just like I said, I just wanted to work all the time. And my parents, of course, were very disappointed. As your parents, they want you to, they had sacrificed so much for us to go to school. And then, of course, I have my brother over here, who is an amazing student, because I'm always getting compared to that, right? That's always hard. But I love to work. I still remember, my parents remind me all the time. I think I was 7 when I went to the fair and sold like 2,000 raffle tickets in one day as a 7-year-old, trying to raise money for our church, to build a church. So, those times I reflect on them. But like I said, my parents did a great job in instilling that work ethic. And but I was blessed, because I had an assistant principal, Mr. Morgan, who the irony of all this, Josh, I just saw him this past week. Oh my God, it was so awesome. I got to spend some time with him at his grandson's wedding. He is truly my champion. I dedicate core principle number 1 at CULTURIZED to be a champion after my assistant principal, Mr. Morgan, who truly was my champion, which means he never quit on me, even though I gave him lots of reasons to quit on me. And number 2, just the fact that he invested time not only in me, but also in my family, and even does to this day. And even his son, who still lives there, spends a lot of time taking care of my parents for me. Isn't that amazing, the generations that happen over there? Yeah, he helped my parents navigate a system they didn't understand, and went to a school board and championed for me and fought to get me back into school when, and think about that for a second. It takes a lot of courage when assistant principal is saying to the school board, this kid needs to be back in school. He's got potential. He doesn't belong. He belongs here. He needs to graduate. So that's pretty awesome, right? So anyway, yeah, some good stuff there, right?
I appreciate you sharing that, because it's crucial. And just like Principal Cafela and other speakers as yourself, tell the background. And there's a lot of aspiring leaders in the classroom that feel that because they had, air quotes, checkered past, they cannot be in the chair. That's not true. It's about us using our experiences. Just like I was a drunk ditcher in high school. I was a product of divorce. I was always drinking in Juarez every single last day and come back before the bell rang. And so it's and Mari also was no walk in the park. Is that we all ended up using those experiences to help our kids that are like us. So I think it's very important that people out there across the United States, across the world, because we have fans in Trinidad and Tobago and New Zealand, for this, that there is no cookie cutter way of becoming the leader of a campus. So I really value that you sharing those experiences with Dr. Moreno.
Yeah, Josh, I was going to say, I also, how many times you meet people that I feel like, for whatever reason, people who struggled in school make really good teachers and really good educators, right? Or really good administrators. I think just because they've had those experiences. So I think that's why we kind of are always kind of steady. We're like, yeah, this will be fine. If that's the worst thing a vape, if that's the worst thing he thinks he does, I think we'll be all right. I think we'll be all right with that one. But I mean, it doesn't mean kids shouldn't be held accountable and responsible and all that. But I think it's that idea of, I do think sometimes we do forget what it feels like to be a 14-year-old or a 17-year-old or a 12-year-old. And, we have such high expectations for young people, which we should. But the point of it is we also have to remember that they are young people making decisions, and they learn by those mistakes. And I think sometimes, I think people just care so much and they take it so personally. But I do remind our adults all the time, like, sometimes I think we expect more from our kids, but then I always remind them. But if we looked at our own behavior as adults, I think sometimes
Mhm.
we're not being the best role models either. So anyway, it's always a balance a little bit, but it's certainly it's a good reminder for all of us.
Thank
Yes,
you.
it certainly reminds me, right? It certainly reminds me sometimes of how I was as a kid. And sometimes we have to, I mean, we make mistakes. We were kids. You're 13 years old. Sometimes your choices are not always going to be the best. But what do you do, right? After you realize you made a mistake, you got to learn from your failures, right?
Mhm.
So, absolutely. I love that, Jimmy. Thank you. Thank you so much. So, Jimmy, let's talk a little bit about your career trajectory, okay? Because you are one amazing speaker that goes all over the world. So you're always you always know how to evolve and always know how to advance schools by creating those systems to help schools with supporting their kids. So my question to you is, who did you learn from as far as your leadership style from sorry. So who did you learn leadership from? And how did you adjust while sitting in the chair?
Yeah. Well, I think all of us have many people who influence us throughout our lives, right? I mean, obviously, I think most of us begins with our parents, and they influence us in many different ways, watching them and learning
Mm-hmm,
from them
mm-hmm.
and trying to be like them, right? And also trying to figure out which parts not to be like them, right? And trying to evolve into your own person,
Absolutely.
right? So,
Mm-hmm.
so obviously, I always say this too. It is amazing to me that one of the things I see a lot is I do remind people anytime I have the opportunity that everyone is where they're at today because we allowed other people to help us be the best versions of ourselves, right? No
I
one
agree.
can do this life by themselves. We're always constantly being helped and supported by other people. But there is something about administration that once people kind of get to that pinnacle, it's like we forget that and we try to do
Mm-hmm,
everything by ourselves.
mm-hmm,
And it's a good
mm-hmm.
reminder that I think the only way to be great is you have to give people permission to help you be great, right? That's the first thing I would say. No one can do this job alone and on their own, and that's not a good way to try it anyway. So that definitely as I would not. But obviously through my career, I had other people who influenced me. I often talk about those. My first superintendent, my first principal, my coordinator or program director at Cardinal Stritch College. I mean, certainly I had professors, but I feel like once I started the role, I feel like I was influenced by other people that honestly, I think like my generation came in at the right time. Social media for us, for those of us who were already, grown and in the field and working as professionals. But I do believe that those individuals who took that leap to really expand their network and began to meet people across the country that in no
Mm-hmm.
way we would have never been able to do that back in the 90s and so forth. And but I feel like there were so many people that I would watch and I would just learn from them, right? I wanted to be like them. Even when I was even a very, very young teacher, I remember going and watching, the Bill Daggett's of the world, the Todd Whitakers of the world, the Terrence
Yeah.
Steeles of the world, right? All these individuals that really inspired me, right? And I wanted to be like them. Like I could see them and Rick DeFore, oh my God, Rick DeFore, right? I tell people
Yes.
Rick DeFore took this 22-year-old kid who wanted to be an administrator, and I basically just because my actually not 22, my apologies, my 24-year-old but my program director Cardinal Stritch knew him and reached out to him, and she gave me his his phone number to school. He was at Lincolnshire at the time. I called him and he took this guy, this 24-year-old kid that he didn't know, and spent literally like 3 hours with him, right? And I'm like, who does
Wow.
that, right? And when he as he got older, when he got sick and so forth, I was trying to follow his path. And Ken Williams, who's a friend of mine, also was reaching out and communicating to me and telling me how things were going with him. And of course, when he got the diagnosis of cancer, took my team. I was still a principal at the time. I took my team to Minneapolis to see him because I knew there weren't many times left he was going to be speaking. Man, that talk he gave that day in Minneapolis was a freaking rock star mic drop moment. And I remember going up and talking to him afterwards. And then I went home and I wrote a blog post about him. I was so inspired by him.
Wow.
And then later, as he was nearing his death, Ken Williams reached out to a bunch of us. So I was able to send him a big, long video just to let him know what he meant to us. And yeah, so it's crazy, right? All these things and these people that influence our lives. But the point of it is that, I think we're always evolving. I think we're all learners. And I think that's one thing that I never let this job get to my head. Like, I always believe I can be better. Like, I'm always feeling like I'm learning. I feel like none of us ever can have this figured out. I think the biggest thing is you just try to get back to a profession that's been really good to me. So, yeah.
Yeah. The minute you say that you know it all is the minute you need to walk away.
Yeah.
I absolutely believe in that. Yeah. But that is so cool that you got to meet Rick DeFore. I remember I was a young assistant principal, and I know my principal had us doing lots of PD and lots of reading around the work that he did. But you're absolutely right. Surrounding yourself with people who inspire you, who you want to be like, and admire them, right? Of the work that they're doing. That's so powerful. And I think that's what Josh talks about all the time, as far as, growing your PLN. We're not alone. And then now you're right. Back in the 90s, we didn't have this in front of us where we were able to talk to one another and connect with the whole world. And now it's in our fingertips. It's as close to as our phones.
Yep.
And so yeah, now the possibility is endless. And so I'm super excited to actually hear who's influenced you, because now I know why you're so great. Look at you.
Yeah, I still got the video Rick DeFore right here I made for him. I was like ready to pull it up. So I'll always keep that, right? It's pretty awesome. So yeah.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
So, all right. So big shout out to Da Costa Ahito from Cameroon. Thank you for being here today, my brother. Thank you for showing up. Frank Paulin, thank you for being here. John Hurts, Sean Hurt, the lead hitter of the Fantastic Four. Thank you for being here. Renisha, thank you again. So, Jimmy, you brought up great names. Obviously, that was my first. NASSP 2013, back in the Stone Age, I think. First time I heard of that young man known as Todd Whitaker. And I didn't know. Why was everyone sitting outside the door? I didn't get that. You didn't have those kind of names in El Paso, let alone going to a national conference. And then when you walk in there, you're like, ay, Dios mío. Okay, I get it. Let me cramp in there on the floor somewhere there in Las Vegas and take notes. It was a great experience. But which now you, sir, that's where you find yourself, sir. And it was a pleasure meeting you at TASSP. I go, who's this Jimmy Casas cat? Let me learn about him. And sure enough, pure fireballs. So my question to you is this, and there's a lot of people that aspire to the Todd Whitaker realm because they have so much to bring to the table. Like you just said, help the profession that we're in, the best profession, the profession that creates all the professions, education. How did you see yourself transitioning from being a campus administrator with all the accolades that you brought in your state to taking short steps out of the way, go presenting and coming back to the chair, but now doing this full time? So what inspired you to evolve in that trajectory? Because, there are a lot of people out there that have the ideas, the love, and the passion to support their fellow educator, but just don't know the methodology on how to do that. Share your thoughts on that.
Oh boy, this could be a whole book on itself, right? There's a lot of thoughts I think about this all the time. So
facts.
All right, let me dive into this one. I'll be a little careful too, because I got some personal thoughts on this one too. So I'll try to keep it real, like I always do, Josh. So
please.
The first thing I'll say is this: well, first of all, I fell into this, right? Like, this isn't something like I aspired to do. That's the first thing I would say. I was very happy being a high school principal. I could see myself being a high school principal forever. I could see myself being a superintendent. But my life really started changing. Really, probably, I was doing a little bit. I tell people I started presenting when I was 26 years old. Okay, I tell people this all the time. But I presented for 18 years for free, Josh. For 18 years, I presented. Nobody ever paid me a penny. Never asked for a penny. I just like doing it, right? I presented at colleges, universities, obviously at all my state conferences, the regional conferences. I would submit to NASSP like everybody else. And do these things. And I just wanted to learn. I wanted to get in front of people. I felt like I had something to share. But I never really saw myself doing this like a full-time thing. But that all kind of changed in 2012. I was At that time, just blessed to be the Iowa Principal of the Year. Then I was submitted for the national, and then when I was submitted for the national, I got selected to be a finalist. And I remember going to Washington D.C. and I remember getting the call that I didn't win, but with that came the opportunity to do a closing keynote at NASSP, and to do that talk, my life just changed after that. Like, I never asked for that, but when that happened, I didn't write. Honestly, I didn't really know what to do with it, to be honest with you. I never had been like, every once in a while, like somebody would reach out, but it was not like this, like almost like in demand. It was crazy there for a little bit. And I was trying to balance being a principal and also doing that job. And here's what I reflected as I took away from that. The lessons I learned from that, Josh, honestly, and this is what I try to tell people all the time, is first of all, I believe that when I was doing it because I just wanted to go do it, initially was the most fun I ever had. I would go out, I would take a day off from work, take a vacation day, whatever. I'd come back and I would be so jacked up, right? Like, I would be out there, like I'd come back and I'd go, oh my God, I want to go back to my building. I can't wait to get back and share these things. And then in addition to that, when I would be out speaking or out working at school, the first thing I would say to myself is, oh my God, am I doing that in my school? And so I feel like I'd go back and it held me to a different standard. Like, I needed to be better because I felt like a hypocrite if I'm asking these people to do things that I'm not even doing myself. So that was another thing that I thought, man, what a powerful way to continue to learn. But what I couldn't see at the time, and this is what just caught me off guard because I had never experienced it, to be honest with you, was this idea of professional jealousy. I felt like my life went like this. And if you ever watched the movie, have you watched the movie Air when he's talking and he's telling that monologue, almost, I guess I call it a monologue. Matt Damon's talking to Michael Jordan, his family, goes, you know what? This is what we do to people. We build them up, right? And as soon as you think you reach that pinnacle, we do everything we can to tear you down. And then we build you back up. It's like, that's kind of how I felt, like, And I always tell people, like, and just jokingly, but I kind of meant it at the time. I was like, man, this Principal of the Year and National Principal thing I was like the worst thing that could have happened to me, right? Like, dude, I just want to be a principal. Like, I didn't ask for any of this, right? So all that stuff messes with you. And so, but the takeaway from it was you learn as you figure out who the people who really care about you, because they carry your banner no matter what, right? And there were people that would come to me and say, Jimmy, even my own daughter said to me, Daddy, you're bigger than Bettendorf, right? Like, she could see it, right? But I wanted to be a principal. That's what I wanted to do, It just messes with you. So people today, I try to help them understand that, like, hey, that's why it doesn't ever go to my head, because I know exactly what that feels like, right? So I just try to see it from a different lens all the time. I think people, do the best they can. But what I would say to people today who aspire for it, people always say, like, when did you know it was time to leave? I said, well, I think I felt like it was messing with me so much. Like, I didn't want to deal with all that. Like I said, I didn't ask for this. I just wanted to go do it. But the one thing to take that risk to leave the principalship is a little scary, obviously. Mm-hmm. But I believed in myself. That's what I would tell you. I literally believed in myself. Like, I know I can do this. I know I'll need help. And when I went out there, we just had our company retreat, which is really awesome. So I was able to show the 8-year timeline of walking away in 2016 and then literally by myself the first year. I take my secretary with me, Josh. It's just me and her. Neither one of us know what the hell we're doing, right? Because we're educators, right? We're not business people. We're not entrepreneurs, but I believe in myself. It was like, I always tell people, it's like Tom Cruise, right? And Show Me the Money. He's like, hey, you want to come with me? I don't have any clients. I can't pay you, but I'm going to take this goldfish with me, right? It's kind of like that story. And I'll always, she's still my secretary today. She was my building secretary for 10 years, but I love her to death because, who else believed in me but her? And we just, we went and did this thing. And now we have 9 full-time employees, and we have a blanket of people around us that also serve in our capacity in the work that we do. And it's crazy to think how that grows and evolves. And that's why I know I'm blessed, and I never take it for granted. So we'll just keep doing it as long as we can. So I'd say, first of all, you got to believe in yourself. Number 2, don't quit your day job. Don't quit your day job. Remember, because once you quit your day job, now the pressure's there. Now it's like, I have friends I'm like, I am never calling one of my friends and asking for a job. I'm not doing that. Like, hey, you need a speaker? Nope, not doing that. So I was just blessed for that. But here's a good tip I will tell people. This is kind of when you know you're ready to maybe take that leap out and go for it if you're going to go for it. Here's what I tell you, right? So here's what I tell people. If you go and speak and you're in front of a group of leaders, we're going to use leaders as the group, not teachers, but leaders, and there's 100 people sitting in the room, I believe that if there's 100 people in the room and you finish speaking, you should get at least 5 inquiries after you're done speaking, and you should book at least 2 of those contracts. So if you can do that, and you can do that consistently, you probably have I think you increase your chances of making this field. But you have to ask yourself that, because a lot of people will go and speak, and I always tell them, when was the last time you spoke? How many contracts you get? None? Don't quit your day job, because it's too risky. It's too risky. That means you still got to work on your craft. You got to get better. Remember, 18 years, no one paid me a penny. It's not like I just woke up one day. So I feel like sometimes it's like my children, right? Like, you know how sometimes they go, I just want to buy that house. Mijo, I spent 25 years working before I bought this house, okay? But they want that house today. Well, it's the same thing. You know, I tell people I charged $500 the first time I spoke, and yeah, I charge a lot today. But I had to build a foundation of years of doing that. But people today, I think, number one, they come out, they want to charge too much too quickly. They want to do things like, you got to work at your craft. You're not ready. You're going in front of audiences. It's risky, because you could also mess it up where they'll never call you back again. So that's why I try to be honest to people. I give people my time and try to help them and give them suggestions and advice, things to think about. But it's hard work. It's a hustle when it becomes your full-time job. So I tell people, slow down, just enjoy it. Do both, man. Keep teaching, keep being a principal, and then go speak and just love it. Because once you leave it, it's a grind, and it's not always fun, people. It's a hustle. And so anyway, like I said, I could talk forever on that topic, but I'll probably just stop there.
And you know what, Jimmy? David Adencibia, who was just on the interview chair, thank you for being here. And shout out to Ranu from Trinidad and Tobago. Thank you for being here. Coach Hurt, yes, sir. Great conversation. And you know what, Jimmy? I just like to piggyback on that. You and Mari know that being in the chair still, I call you all for your support. I believe in bringing only top-notch people to my home. And I think as someone sitting in my chair that does the budget, and I will piggyback on what Jimmy said, watch what you charge, especially when people know the product and the quality. So you cannot, and I'm speaking as a principal sitting in the chair for many years. If you're out there and you want to come to a place, number one, make sure that your skills match to the place. And number two, charge appropriately. Because both of you know, and a lot of people, I've brought Eric Schillinger, Darren Peppard, I've tons of people to my homes. Cafele twice. I brought top-notch talent. Whitaker. I know what that is. And then when you're new and you're charging almost what they charge, I'm like, cálmate, ¿que estás loco? Cálmate. For those of you in Iowa or Nebraska, what are you, crazy? Really? No. So yeah, there's some certain Title I funds, but come on. What value do you bring and what trajectory do you bring to ensure that your vision as you present as a presenter ties into what I have, and that it has to equate the funds that I'm using, which is kids' money. Kids' money. I'm using kids' money to bring in PD to the school. So if you don't know that, just keep that in the back of your mind. Stick, Dr. Moreno.
Awesome. Thank you, Josh. And it's so right. You're absolutely right. What both of y'all said is so true. So, Jimmy, let's talk a little bit about the podcast, the interview chair. I know you mentioned it already, but just so everybody knows, that the interview chair is a podcast, right? So, and so since you've been focused on the interview chair and this education crisis of this exodus that's happening with teachers who are leaving because, they're frustrated with the system or kids' behavior or whatever, et cetera, et cetera. You, Jimmy, are supporting educators across the United States. So can you describe or tell us, what do you see as one of the main problems as far as education today? And what can we do as a profession to reunite and reignite what is happening to our beloved profession?
Yeah. Well, first of all, I would say in my experience, I can only speak from that, but typically when I get a call, the issue is always revolves around the way people are behaving in an organization. Okay.
Hmm.
So that is why I define culture as behavior, right? Because we can talk all day about what the words on the wall say, right? But at the end of the day, all I have to do is look at the behavior around the school. It'll tell me everything I need to know about the culture. So that's the first thing. So I think what's happening right now is, first of all, is culture is a huge issue, right? That's the first thing I would say.
Hmm.
The
Hmm.
second thing is this is what I observe is it's kind of a young man's game or young person's game, right? And what is now more common than ever is that people are moving and advancing within the profession faster than they ever have. And sometimes I don't think they have spent enough time. Like I probably had like on that surface, the last generation that was maybe able to get away with that a little bit, but even honestly, I didn't. But I think what I see now is that people might be a principal for 3 or 4 years, and now they're moving into the superintendent role because there's so many shortages in these areas, right?
Hmm.
So I feel people are walking, and this isn't being disrespectful, or it's not a dig or a criticism. It's just the reality of just like for me, but people are walking the profession, maybe not necessarily equipped to do the job yet because it's so complicated. Because the communities now where people have access to you and social media and people have a voice and people can go and it's there's just a lot of emotional toll that it takes on people.
Hmm.
So it's no wonder why we have so many cultural issues in our schools that just it's exhausting. That's what happens. It just wears people down. That's what happens. So if you're going to survive in this profession and more importantly get to a point where you look forward to going to work every day, which we all should, then we have to build a culture where people do feel valued and feel appreciated and feel like they have a voice and feel like a true family, because we don't have time to be dealing with chatter and gossip and negativity and all that that just beats us up and all those types of things. So that's why culture is so important. But the second component I was just talking about to me is the area in leadership development. How are we developing leaders? And more importantly, how are we developing so everybody is equipped to be a leader in the school,
Hmm.
right? We
Hmm.
can't be putting that onus on one individual. It's not fair. It's not realistic. And so I do think that most of the issues we deal with, and I'm speaking even my own tenure and 22 years in that role, is that most of these are leadership issues. They really are, from central office to the building level to the classroom level. So we have to help our
Hmm.
leaders, which is why I do what I do, right? Because I know where my life changed, and that is when I hired my first coach to come into my building to help me. And why did it take 12 years for someone to help me? That should have happened right from the get-go during the onboarding process, and I should have been equipped to have people support me. And I always say, why did it take 12 years? And it would have saved me a lot of, a big toll on me. It would have saved that toll on me, right? But so that's the second areas in leadership development. I see a lot of issues. And then the third one, honestly, and this is probably the hardest one, and again, they all kind of blend together, right? But that third one is in the area of instruction. And what we see is, if you think about this just logically for a second, this is why the principal role is so important, and that they have to see themselves through the lens of a teacher because their role is to teach. That is where I see the best leaders are the ones that are still teaching. But what happens is it messes with us a little bit. That's why I never judge it, right? So I tell people, listen, I'm not going to be critical or judgmental. But my job, which is the one thing I think I'm really good at that people tell me, is I can help people see what they don't see, which are those undercurrents, that they are the undercurrent, just like I was the undercurrent when I was a leader. I just couldn't see it. Well, when you're the observer, it's easier to see the undercurrents than when you're right in it, right? We see this all the time. So the
Hmm.
teaching, the heart of a teacher, right, is what I say, right? You were a teacher at one point. You were probably pretty darn good. That's why you went into administration, but then they quit teaching and they start fixing. That's the problem. They think they have to fix everything. Well, why does that happen? Well, in my work and the assessments that we do, is most leaders see themselves as a servant leader, which is a wonderful quality to have, right? And that's what we want people to do. But they confuse the servant leadership as they're supposed to do everything for everybody. The problem is you can't sustain that over a long period of time. And when you're always fixing, you're no longer teaching. And so to me, the key is that we have to get back to teaching. Well, the area is, if you think about this, if principals are using their assistant principals only consistently in managerial roles, and those assistant principals become principals, what I see is that when I go into a building, a principal still loves to go down into that management mode and fix those behaviors. But what they do not see is you can't run a system when you're constantly at the 1,000-foot level putting out fires. No one's working on the system, right? And that's ultimately what we're responsible for. So we have to help principals. How do they get themselves out of that, back up to that systemic level, right? Which is where they need to spend more time. But one of those areas is in instruction, because they haven't spent enough time there. And that's where they struggle a lot. And instructionally is an area that I like to focus on. And, you know, I've got a couple of colleagues that I believe are really good at it too, from an administrator role. So that's the thing I would say to principals is we have to teach our assistant principals how to become effective leaders someday. I think that is your legacy as a principal, is to leave and build more leaders so the system continues, right? So that's why I try to teach. I tell people I'm not a consultant. I don't, you know, if people want to call themselves, that's fine. I just don't believe I'm a consultant, because I believe consultants are there to tell people what to do. I'm there to teach. That's what I do. I coach and I teach. And I collaborate. And if I need to fall on consultant road, every now and then I will, because I worry that they're going to cause an undercurrent that's going to hurt them. And there will be times I say, hey, don't do that. But then I'll explain why not to do that, right? The danger of that if they go down that path. So anyway, that's just the way I see it. And so those are the three areas I would say. Culturally, issues I see, leadership development, because people are going younger and younger in the profession, not equipped, not enough years of experience. It's tough to survive in 2020. It's tough to survive while building the plane while you're flying. You can't say we're going to learn it on the job. It's too dangerous. In the 90s, when I first started back in the early 90s, you could get away with it. I could get away with it back then, right? Not anymore, is what I believe. So, and then that last piece is that instructional component. So those are some things to consider, to think about.
Jimmy, talk about some large nuggets. That was so powerful of what you shared with everybody, because you're absolutely right. We are so often trying to shut off all the fires of what's going on in a school. And I know principals that love to do that. And it's like they never can change or turn around a school because they're constantly doing the small things. But I love the fact that you're talking about, you know, teaching, continuing to teach even at that level. It's so important. And I love the legacy part, making sure that you're teaching your assistant principals, because they will one day be in that chair, right? And they'll be responsible for making sure that the whole system is working. But if that principal is not providing the support and teaching them how to do it, they're just going to continue to just turn off those fires, right? And they'll never, ever, ever do the work that needs to happen to actually create sustainable change for our kids. I was writing some notes down because those were some really powerful words, and I thank you for sharing. And I know everybody out there was also commenting. I was looking at some of the comments coming through, also agreeing with you. And I think you're absolutely right. Our teachers are I don't know, they were teachers for 2-3 years, and then they become assistant principals. I mean, they become APs in administration so fast that they really didn't understand kind of the groundwork, right? What happens in our classrooms. And so, because again, those positions are opening up so quickly that we're having to fill those as well. So anyways.
And I fell into the same trap, right? Because I was really good at managing. Well, no wonder we want to manage, because we're really good at it. But when you take the principal role, you have to become more of a leader instructionally, more systemic. That's what I see is it's hard for them to understand how to build a system, right? And the system is important, right? We have to make this clear that why is the system important? Because to me, it's an equity issue. You can't have a school or an organization where some kids are getting the benefit and other kids are not, or some teachers are getting the support and other teachers are not. I mean, that's not a system. It's going to create all sorts of undercurrents for us. So, but it's not their fault, right? And that's why we have to teach them and show them how to create effective processes, right? Like change, right? Like that's one of the hardest things to do. And yet everybody's supposed to do it, but no one's really equipped to do it, just like I wasn't equipped to do it.
Yeah.
Someone taught me how to do that. That's why I became better, not because I figured it out. No, someone taught me how to implement change effectively, right? How do we truly layer the leadership to the organization to take something to scale? Most initiatives die because we don't know how to take it to scale. Well, someone's got to teach these people how to do that, right? It's not fair to them. But then you know what happens now? This is why the principalship's so hard. Watch, because when Josh was talking when the show started about the perimeter, again, I'm not being critical, but central office gets frustrated with the building leader and they go to the perimeter and blame the building leader. But no, you didn't teach the building leader. And then the building leader, right? What do? They blame the teacher. No, no teacher wants to fail. They want to be successful too, just like we all do. That's why we need to get back. That's why onboarding people is one of the most critical components of any effective organization, but it's also the least amount of time we put into people. Hiring, onboarding, retaining. If you haven't figured that system out, well, no wonder we're struggling. But who's teaching? There's no class in college that teaches us how to hire people, but it's the most important thing we do. Think about it, just logically. Now I'm getting fired up. Now let's go. Now I'm getting
do it.
Up.
Ándale.
Ahora
sí le voy a echar ganas, Josh.
All right. Esas son puras ganas, amigo, puras ganas.
God bless our educators.
Austri.
That's why we have to pour into them, people.
Exactly. Welcome, Marcella Austri, for being here. Yes, Dot, I could see your comments. I am posting them. Hey, Jimmy, just real quick, and just for everybody out there, he was a consultant when he came over to my last home, and we were having a leadership meeting. I loved it. It's great. It's stuff like that that makes you a better leader. We're having a leadership meeting, and Jimmy's just sitting in the background, and we're talking about what's coming up. That's the year that we earned the B- before he talked to the kids. He talked to the kids. And he walks in and he goes, hold on. Do you know what he's doing? And then everyone's like looking at, Jimmy Constance, all right. And he goes, he doesn't know what he's doing. No one taught him how to do what he's doing. And and I love that. That was a very perfect point. I love that when he said that, because it's true. No one ever from the perimeter, from central office, came in and said, hey, Josh, this is how you turn around a 2,550 school from a D- to a B-. But make sure that you do it real quick, all right? And all those fights in the hallway, hey, we need you to fix it, but no one's gonna come here and coach you, because you know what's been happening for years. And by the way, those other things about a kid attendance, just fix it real quick. Yeah. But make sure you do it real quick.
Crazy.
And lower the suspension rate. You can't suspend everybody.
Oh yeah, please make sure the stats are horrible.
Lower behaviors, right? And referrals, and increased student achievement. And by the end of the year, I got it. I can do this.
That was such a great. It was such a great point to make publicly, because from that moment on, that statement was true. Because we need to remind everybody, somos todos. Yeah. No es uno, no son seis. It's all of us. That's the only way this boat is going to turn around. That it's all of us making sure that we implement that with the PD, with one-on-one, being in the classroom, doing walkthroughs consistently, making sure we give feedback. So it's very important. I love that you said that. And part of loving what you said, that from that moment on, I've been following you, hermano, for a while, and your podcast has totally evolved. And I would like for you, and you connected, man. You got me with two stories. And I text you about the first one. I think it's crucial you talk about Savannah, brother. I think it's crucial you talk about Savannah, because when you talked about Savannah, ese era el amor de un profesor. And I think you should talk a little bit about the most recent episode that you had with a young man that was fired at 27, and he's a national speaker now. And then the way he triggered you when you talked about people being toxic when you're going back and forth from the chair to speaking and back and forth. You really opened yourself up on that one. I go, wow. It was at 4 a.m. I'm like, wow, Jimmy's opening himself up on that one. Share as much. And if you have not heard that guy right there, that cat right there on the interview chair, start from number 1, and it all comes together. The way that he's going in his trajectory right now, it's all coming together. Love it. Talk about Savannah and that that toxic environment that you were in, the best that you want.
Yeah, well, a couple things. I kind of alluded to a little bit the second part.
Yes.
But anyway, well, the truth of the matter is, I mean, here's the cool part. I think schools are filled with Savannahs, right? They're filled with the Bens of the world. They're filled with the Miltons of the world. They're filled, all these kids that you can see that you had at one point, right? And these are just children, right? That they all have a story, but we don't really know their story, and it just breaks our heart, right? And whether it's a student like Savannah or it's a teacher, right? There are teachers that way too, and there are administrators who have stories, who are also trying to heal, right? They're trying to heal. They're so broken for so many reasons because they've had these experiences, right? So I think the biggest takeaway from that, Josh, is always remember is that's why core principle number one, Culturize, exists, because it's about investing time in people. I was a Savannah too, right? There's lots of them out there. And that's why Mr. Morgan, what he did for me, just by investing time in me to understand the story. In other words, why does Jimmy behave the way he behaves? And rather than judge, and rather than play gotcha games, rather than give up and quit on me, he literally one day just said to me, he goes, "You can be upset at me all you want, son. Do you understand I'm not going away?" He would say that to me, right to me. And in my head, there was a personal struggle, like, I hate you, I love you. I hate you, I love you, right? Because you don't want to give in, but you're like inside, you're like, please don't give up on me, Mr. Morgan, right? Because I'm really a good kid, right? And so it's just a reminder, right, that every teacher, right, we all get letters, we get emails, right? We get kids that come back and visit at our school and like, oh my God, I couldn't even get you to come to class when you're here, and now I can't get rid of you, right? There are teachers who are working with children before school, lunchtime, after school. We run into the grocery stores. They tell these stories about us that we don't even remember half of them anymore. They invite us to their weddings, right? And and it's like my Justin, right? My kid who went to prison, right? The kid who reached out to me, of all the people he could reach out to me, he reaches out to a 6th grade teacher. That's who he reaches out to when he gets out of prison. I mean, that's just nuts. And there's stories like that everywhere, right? That's why we say every student, every day, whatever it takes. But yeah, the Savannahs of the world, just, kids who were broken, who left us, but then came back and said, hey, I had no idea what this young lady was going through, the rape and the trauma and the incest and all that. How would anybody know that, right? And yet, the only thing I think I did right is I just didn't quit on her. Like, I can't fix all that. But that's where our educators, I think, are brokenhearted, because I think they're trying to fix all these problems, and you can't, right? But what you can do is you can always have empathy, and you can always have love, and you can always have compassion, and you can always just take time to reach out to a children to check in on them, just make sure they're doing okay. And that's all you can do, people. And I think we have to think long-term, and I think all that comes back full circle on us, and I think inspires us to keep doing this work. And so we can't fix them all, but we can make sure that we're hanging in there. And as I alluded to before, Josh, I mean, part of it is, I was ready to leave the principalship and go into the superintendent's role. I just finished my superintendency. My daughter, my last child coming through, was a sophomore. I'd already graduated my other children. They had gone through my system, gone through my school. My baby, Maddie, wanted me to be the principal there, to hand her that diploma. But that's when she said, Daddy, I think you're ready. I think you're too big. You can go. Daddy, I'll be fine. So think about that, right? It's pretty powerful. But yeah, I mean, like I said, professional jealousy, I think, exists still. I see people this all the time. And, I see people right now that say, Jimmy, I can't even get, there are people right now across the country who are speaking all over the country, but their own district doesn't even value what they bring to the school every day. It's crazy, right? Think about that for a second. Happens all the time. Yep. All the time. So I understand it's hard to be a prophet in your own land, people, but these people have a lot of value to bring. They really do. But it's because of that professional jealousy. I really believe that's what it is. And that's what people tell me in secrecy. They're never going to say it out here because they don't want to get beat up for it. I'll say it because I'm old, so it doesn't matter anymore. But that's just the truth, what happens. And that's why we have to take care of each other. We sometimes get on the perimeter and want to blame, and we get our feelings hurt when people on the outside talk negatively about our work and our school. I'm like, you know what, I think we do a pretty good job ourselves beating ourselves up each other. And this is why we have to build cultures where people truly take care of one another. How awesome would that be if you could walk into a school every day knowing that everybody in that school has your back? Think about that culture. That's the key.
Exactly.
That's the key. Then they won't leave. Who would leave that? Yeah.
No,
Crazy.
not at all. Welcome, Dr. Edwin Garcia from New Jersey. Thank you for being here, Dr. Moreno.
All right, Jimmy, I have a couple of questions about your books and podcasts, right? So I know they're all in the back. I can see them in the back there in the background. So in your books and in your podcasts, you talk about not being in the perimeter. And I know you mentioned that already, not being in the perimeter and watching out for that undercurrent, which we've discussed a little bit already. But I want you to tell the audience what are two concepts of those of being as far as the undercurrent and not being in the perimeter. So what are two concepts around those topics? And then what is one tool administrators can use to avoid those two situations?
Are you asking what's when you say the concepts, like a couple of examples?
Yeah,
where
absolutely.
The undercurrent, where we create the undercurrent, maybe, is that
correct?
What you're saying?
Yes.
Yeah. I can tell you what the most common undercurrents are. The first one's easy; it's everywhere. I'm not just because I'm just saying this, right? Like, we have assessments that this is what people are telling us, right? So I'm just letting you know that. But communication almost is always in the top three. Communication
I would
is
agree
always
with that.
one of the biggest undercurrents. Always, people get really frustrated about, I didn't know this was going to happen. No one asked us, and when did we decide we were going to do this? And no one ever tells us what's going on right here. So communication is a big undercurrent. That's what hurts us with emails and so forth. That's why I think face-to-face is always the best way to communicate. That's why I think you have to put out weekly memos every week to keep the information present. That's why I think you're constantly having to build these teams and your process for communicating. How does information flow through your organization to avoid
newsletters and whatnot?
Yes, everything. But face-to-face is always still key more than anything, right? Number two, the favoritism undercurrent is a killer, right? That's a big one. And the truth of the matter is we do have favorites, right? See, that's the thing people just have to see. We do. But why is that? And how do we create a culture? Think about this. Administrators often want teachers to build a culture classroom, right? Where children look forward to coming to class every day. They're excited about learning, right? And then they want every child to feel loved, right? And then I say to the principal, but you understand, does your staff feel that way though? Do they look forward to coming to the work? Did they feel loved? Do they feel like they have a voice? Did they feel like they're the favorite? So again, that's a violation to me, is that we're causing that undercurrent. We're causing that undercurrent because we're asking teachers to do something that we're not even doing ourselves, right? Absolutely. So that's an undercurrent, the favoritism undercurrent, and teachers do the same thing in the classroom. Children's assessment, the feedback we get from kids is that they tell us that the teachers have their favorites, and they do. So how do we create a classroom culture where all 27 children feel like the favorite student, or all 17, or however many have in class? Doesn't matter. That is our responsibility to try to create that culture. But the problem is they don't know how to do that. That's where the teaching comes in, the coaching comes in, right? Meetings always come up as a waste of time. And sometimes they are, right? Sometimes they are. And so, but the truth of the matter is there is no class that taught us how to run an effective meeting. But yet we're supposed to be able to do that, right? These are all skills that happen. Another undercurrent is people feel that children are not held responsible for their behavior, right? They're not held accountable. The kids get away with too much, right? Well, that's actually more of a communication issue. That's the funny part about it. It's two undercurrents coming together and head at a head. It's not just the discipline that's given, it's the lack of communication about what and how and why it was given, because they're in the fire too much. So they don't have time to go follow up. And so these things come to a head quite often. So those are the biggest undercurrents. And then the toughest skill, probably, like I said earlier, is how to implement change. They struggle with that. We struggle with that. And then also the undercurrent that goes around how to manage a very complex conversation. How do I handle that student who is refusing to do work today in my class? How do I manage that conversation without hurting my relationship with that child?
Yes.
And that is a skill. And most of us don't have it when we walk into the profession. which is where we get beat up. And that's why when teachers are in the interview chair or administrators in the interview chair, our answers are phenomenal, aren't they? How we're going to manage that. We're going to build relationships. We're going to make connections. I'm going to learn their story. And then they get into the job and like, get out, go, get out. You're not going to talk to me that way. They write the referral. He's not coming back to my class. You see? And so what happened to them, right? That's where we have to be fair to teachers. To me, that's more of an onboarding issue, okay, and more of a cultural issue and more of a lack of teaching issue. See, and now we want to blame the teacher. So this is where I struggle because I know it's all of us. We're all responsible for that culture and climate. So those are the biggest undercurrents. But again, just remember this. I believe that the adults cause the culture. That's where I struggle with these programs. And again, I have to be careful because I'm not trying to be critical because there are programs that are successful, but they are the exception in my opinion and in my experience. What I'm saying is we have companies coming into our schools and trying to convince our schools, if you buy this program, this will take care of all your children's behavior. And you know what I say? Where's the framework for the adult behavior? Because it's us that's causing the culture, not the children. It's never the children, people. And I get beat up for that sometimes. And again, because I'm not being critical about it. I did too. But we have to see that. That's what I'm saying. I can walk into a building and show people where we're causing the culture. It's not the children. But it's easier to go to the perimeter and blame the child than it is to blame me, right? That's just easier. Same way it is for the principal to blame the teacher than it is to blame themselves. We're all the undercurrent because we cause the culture. So we have to equip our educators how to manage these situations. But that's a skill to be able to do that.
Absolutely. I love that. I love that. And then what about, what would you say to an administrator? What tool can you give them or what can you provide them as far as if you're a current administrator to help with, I know you mentioned a whole bunch of undercurrents, but just something big, something that they can.
Yeah, well, I'm always careful about that, Dr. Moda, and I'm going to tell you why. This is where I struggle, okay? I don't even work in the profession when I struggle with it because here's why. I'm not there to sell people anything. I'm there to teach. So here's what I'd rather do. I'd rather teach you how to make your own tools and your own process and frameworks. Obviously, there are resources, right? I think that's why I do the interview chair, because I do believe I give a lot of free resources out. I'm not trying to sell them anything in that case. I mean, obviously, I'm a business now. And yes, my business is to come into a school or sell a book or whatever. But people, look, I'd rather just sit down one-on-one and help somebody through it. And I think that's something I'm really good at. And I think I have a really good reputation out there helping people whenever they reach out. I will sit down with anybody. Obviously, I can't do it every day, but yeah, I'll sit down 2 or 3 times with somebody until I feel like, hey, at some point I got to be fair because this is my business and you don't have to pay for it. But those initial ones, I'll help anybody with anything. But my point is that there are lots of resources, whether it's on my website or in my books that share all these frameworks. But again, these are examples that they can either use and steal and take, and I know they work
and
because
adapt.
they practice them and adapt them.
And adapt.
Or I'll teach you a process how to create your own in your own building, right? And so that's where I struggle with a little bit because that's just me, because that's by nature. Remember, we're still educators. It's a weird concept for me, right? Still, even
absolutely.
Today.
Yeah, no, and that's important. And that's good that you share that, right? That there isn't a one size fits all or a cookie cutter that kind of, let me give you this tool. I love the fact that you said, let's craft your own tools, because each school, each community, each state, each place is very different. And you have to be able to look at the situation and figure out what is going to work and how we're going to best support kids. And the fact that you provide all these resources, whether it's on your website, whether it's on your podcast, whether it's reading a book, right?
My cell number is in my email. You can just call me or text me. I'll help you. Okay. I just rather do that. Right. It's just because I want to help, because I know because I know they're trying to do the very best they can. And it just tells me that they need help. That's why I say the 4 most powerful words in leadership. I need your help. Right. That's, in my opinion, it's 4 most powerful words in leadership. So, and that's what I did finally this summer. I was like, dude, I need help because I'm on the edge of the couch. I'm going to leave this profession if somebody doesn't help me. Right. And that's just kind of where it got to. So, yeah. So there's all those things. And it's
and there's so many principals that cannot say those words. Yeah, they want to do it on
Yeah.
their own. And so you're absolutely right. You have to be able to accept that you need just advice, just some support, because we can't do it alone. So I love it.
Absolutely.
I absolutely
Yeah.
love that.
So yeah, everybody
Big
does the
shout
best
out
they
to
can. We gotta help.
big shout out to Andrea, has visited Memorial from Pennsylvania. Thank you for being here in the show today. There with your comadre
Oh,
talking
Andrea
about
been here? Yeah, hey
yeah.
Andrea.
So Jimmy, I remember the videos that you made a couple of weeks ago where you're out in the street recording those nice professional leadership videos. I remember those, and it was great. You're one of the few that are strong and powerful on social media. I see it, obviously. And I've learned about the things that you do, Joe does, obviously, Principal Cafele, and the importance of social media. But you know that there are a lot of people that are still hesitant about using it in promoting the beauty that is their campus, the beauty that is their classroom. So, what advice do you have to educators, aspiring administrators, current administrators that are still using beta tapes and 8-track tapes in their house and refuse to get on social media because they want to walk around with their Sony Walkman? So, what advice do you have to give them in regard to, like you said, Jimmy, 32 years? I don't care. I'm old. Um, about using social media
Yeah.
as a positive tool to promote that beauty.
Well, I think the first thing, Josh, is we have to understand why people hesitate, right? And typically there is a vulnerability that some people just aren't willing to take that risk. I've met a lot of educators, Josh, that were on social media that got off it because they just got beat up too bad. And so once someone has had a negative experience, it's almost like they're triggered and traumatized a little bit,
Mhm.
right? As soon as somebody starts coming after them a little bit, they pull back. And it's not just people on the outside. Some of this happens internally, even in their own schools. That's why I go back to that professional jealousy, right? I once had someone come to me and tell me I couldn't write a blog post. I'm like, are you kidding me? I can't write a blog post. I can't be on social media. They told me to get off social media. I had someone trying to sue me because I wrote a book and tried to accuse me of taking advantage of children and taking money from them because I wrote a book when I was still a principal and I was stealing content. And I mean, it just gets crazy, right? Like, this is why people hesitate to help sometimes if they're still in the profession, right? So I understand all that. So to me, I always see it this way. I'm different. I've had people say this to me, Jimmy, how do you take the hits on social media and keep fighting through it? Because to me, I can't sit here and say, oh, look what the things they're saying about me that are nice, and then get my feelings hurt when they say something that's not nice. I just learned to take the good with the bad. I mean, I know who I am. That's why core values are so important. I know who I am. I don't need validation from someone else to tell me who I am and who I'm not. You know what I care about? I care about what my wife thinks. I care about what my parents think. I care about what my children think. And if my children are disappointed into me, then I got to reflect on that because I'm not going to disappoint them. So I care more about what they say. If Josh Tovar picks up the phone and said, "Hey Jimmy, I need you to rethink something," I'm not sure that I would listen to that. But why do I care about with somebody who doesn't know me at all? And I appreciate the kind words. I do. Of course I do. And it's also hard because I think by nature, most of us want to be liked by people. No one wants to not be liked. And there's nothing wrong. When people say, I don't care what people think about me, I'm like, nah, liar. Yeah, you do. Yeah, you do. It's a defense mechanism. I know why they say that. I care. I care. But I can't let them live rent free in my head. That I know, right? I know at the end of the day, I am responsible for my own morale. I know that. I can't give that to somebody else, right? And this is why I always say to people when they reach for advice, I try to tell them, I said, listen, you have to get so centered to know who you are, but please do not let these people take your excellence away from you. That is what I worry because people do get beat up. And I think obviously there are people who have thicker skin than other people, and I have pretty thick skin. There's nothing you're going to do me. I mean, you don't know all the story, but people go through a lot in their lives, right? If that's the worst thing that ever happens to me, I think I'm going to be just fine, right? And so you just got to kind of put it in perspective. Doesn't mean it doesn't hurt. Doesn't mean it doesn't bother people. But I always tell people if it does, give it 24 hours and then get it out of there and move on, right? And I know it's hard sometimes, but This is why we have to surround ourselves with this network of people. But there are certain advantages to it. But I don't begrudge anybody who doesn't do it. I know a lot of people who have gotten off it, even friends of mine who have gotten off of it. Hey, and that's what they need to do for their own mental health. That's what they need to do for themselves. I'm going to applaud that. I'm going to support that. But there are other ways to tell our stories too, right? And that's through networking and meeting people. And I always say the best is when other people carry the banner for you. And so that's why it's so important that we create these experiences that when people walk away, they do carry the banner for us. That's on me. That's my responsibility. If someone doesn't, I'll own it. I'm not a perfect being either, people. I mean, you can't ask people to stand in front of a crowd, for their livelihood and think they're never going to misspeak or say the wrong thing while they're speaking. At some point, I'm going to say something that somebody in the audience is not going to like. But, if it happens, then I'll have to live with that. I'll suffer the consequences. I'll own it. But what I'm not going to do is blame other people for it. That's what I'm not going to do. So
perfect. Thank you. And to the last question, Dr. Moreno, before we get into the lightning round, the Échale Ganas questions. Go, Dr. Moreno.
Last question, Jimmy. Last question. Last question, Jimmy, and it's fill in the blank. It's super, super easy because all fill in the blank.
Yeah, they're all easy, Dr. Moreno. None of these are easy.
All righty, so I want you to finish this sentence for me, okay? Yeah. Educators, please know that blank.
You're never alone.
Aw, that's awesome.
Call me. You're never alone.
See, and that's why I told you it was easy. It was a super easy one for you because I know that you open up your heart to everyone, and I'm super happy that you allow that because not everybody does that. And so thank you again for doing that. And people are going to know how to reach you after you answer.
You can blame my mom for that. You can blame my mom for that, Dr. Moreno. She raised me right.
Perfect.
Awesome. Josh, échale ganas. Can you tell? I don't think Jimmy needs to be told what ganas means, but I think everybody else probably needs a refresher.
Jimmy don't know ganas. He knows what that is.
Ándale, échale ganas, Josh.
Wyoming, I might have some Cowboys in here, or Utah. I know they don't know what ganas is. So for those out there that do not know, you see, the word ganas is a spiritual word for all Hispanics. It doesn't matter if you're Cuba or Panama, Mexico, Nicaragua. It doesn't matter. We all use it. And it's a generational word. There is no equate in the English dictionary because it means so much more. It's passion, it's spirit, it's love, it's generational desire from one group to another to say, I want you to be the best version of yourself. That's why it's so important. And that's why Jimmy Casas is going to give us ganas on these 8 questions. Puras ganas.
Hey, there's another word that I think might be just as powerful, but on the other end of the spectrum. And that is coraje.
Coraje.
Yeah, people struggle with that. Like to explain that, like it can mean a lot of things, but me da coraje, ¿verdad?
Well, that's true. Agreed. Coraje,
but that's still not quite where ganas is. Ganas is still number 1, no doubt about it.
So here we go, and at the end, we'll whatever the books that you have, Jimmy, we'll push them out there, support you, love you, carry your banner here at the PGP podcast. But here we go. Give advice to a new administrator.
Yes. I would definitely say a new administrator, I'd say slow down. Definitely slow down and just lean into other people, learn as much as you can. I think that's the first thing. And the biggest mistake I think a new administrator can do is they come in too quickly wanting to make change when you got to understand the history, focus on relationships, try to figure out where people are at. You don't need to blow up the system, ease into it. So slow down.
Read a note, an email, a text from a teacher or student that inspired you.
Yeah, you told me to prepare for this one. So here's the irony. I just got this one about 3 weeks ago. I was out in Colorado doing koalas, Latino for Colorado. And so this is the text that I was sent. So I'll just read it. So I'm almost embarrassed to do this because I can't believe you asked to do this, but I will play along. It said, hey, Jimmy, just thinking of you on this Saturday. I talked to Morgan. You have to understand Morgan's this woman's daughter. Okay. I talked to Morgan yesterday, and you had evidently been in Denver, and some coworkers had gone to see you speak. And I think one of the administration, but some of the administration, but separately, both these and the admin were talking speaker and had bought his book. Morgan was so pleased to be able to say that was my principal when I was in high school. And they sung your praises. And while I know you probably hear it from lots of sources, but it always makes me so happy and proud of you to see the success, but not just the success, but to know it's done with so much integrity and hard. There must be a typo. And it says, and I love what you represent, and you will always be my favorite principal ever. And I miss having you in our building every day. Just thought I'd share with these positive things with you, because when I think of them, I was thinking of you. Hope you have a wonderful day, friend. And that, my friends, was from one of my staff members. So one of my staff members' kids works in Colorado, and they went back and she said, that's my principal.
All right.
So it's weird, right? You never know. You never know who's in the audience.
One educator that inspires you.
I'm going to go with my wife, Josh, because she's pretty damn good at what she does. So I'm going to go with Keila Casas.
What's one person people should follow on social media?
Yeah, I thought long and hard about this, but I'm going to go with my man, Weston Kieschnick. Weston is so talented. He's Wes_Kieschnick on X, but his podcast is unbelievable. His books are great. Atlas, the last one he wrote for us, and he's working on another one right now that's going to be awesome. So I would say Weston Kieschnick.
What's one song, una canción that embodies your spirit as a person?
Well, I have to say any song by Vicente Fernandez, okay? Volver. However, because that's my dad's favorite song. Pero Vicente Fernandez. But right now, I'm listening to the 502s. So that's what I would recommend to people to go check out the 502s. Great energy, great songs, great energy.
Favorite quote?
The moment you're ready to quit is usually the moment right before the miracle happens. So don't quit.
What's your favorite cheat food?
Cheat food's got to be the peanut M&Ms, dude. I ate like a pound bag last night of that. Peanut M&Ms, amigo.
What's your favorite TV show or book?
Oh my goodness, I got lots of those. I can tell you what my last couple books that I read that I really love is The Psychology of Money by Morgan Housel and Unreasonable Hospitality by Will Guidaro, because I love to read books by businessmen and things around the economy and business, because obviously I'm an entrepreneur now, so I got to learn more about that stuff. So those two books are awesome books. Mm-hmm.
And if they want to bring Jimmy Casas to their casa to enhance the learning culture, how can they get a hold of you? And can you please show some of those books that you have inspired others with?
Reach out to Josh Tovar.
That's
what I would say. Just go to jimmycasas.com. I think you can find everything you need there. Just jimmycasas.com, the website. I think you get all the information. Then reach out there privately if you want, or send me a private message on social media. I'll chat with you there. Somebody asked how to spell Kieschnick's last name. So it's Kieschnick. So I know that was pretty quick, but I don't know if you can type that in there, Josh. Kieschnick, Weston Kieschnick. Let's see. I've written 10 of them. I think there's 5 of them right there. So, but my latest one is Words on the Wall. That's more instructional. So if you're looking for some instructional to help support your teachers and administrators, that's getting great reviews and great feedback on our book studies that we're doing right now, and that we're going to use it in schools. Obviously, Culturized was the game changer for me, because I wrote that when I was still a principal, and I was a blessing in so many ways. And then Live Your Excellence came after that, and Handle with Care, and then Recalibrate the Culture is the one that I spend most of the time with leaders right now. They use that book everywhere. I was just in Florida here this past week, and they'll be using that book across their districts there. So it's pretty awesome. But yes, because Culturize is a behavior framework, and then Recalibrate is a leadership framework, but they go hand in hand. But again, what I want to do is I want people to create their own behavior frameworks and their own leadership frameworks rather than try to adopt. But you can certainly use those to get started, but eventually create your own, because I don't know your culture, right? That's why I always said, you were saying earlier, Ms. Moreno, when I was a principal, one thing that always bothered me is that people come into my school and try to sell me something. And I'm like, but you don't even know my kids. You don't know my staff. You don't know my culture. You don't know anything, because I hate that one size fits all. No, we need to teach and help and understand people's communities and their staff and their students. And then with them together, co-create and build these things and teach so they can sustain even after you leave. That's the key, in my opinion.
Wow.
Absolutely.
Another home run, another great presentation by this young man right here who, and let me tell you, I'm telling you as Josh, the principal, this guy really means what he states to you, that if you have something, you reach out to him. I'm not calling him like every 3 seconds. I don't do that. But I'm letting you know that
Every
when I
3 days, though. Every 3 days.
all right, all right. Hey, cálmate. Hey,
I'm messing. That is not true.
cálmate. Don't be telling
That's
people that I
not
do
true.
stalk you, bro. Calm down. But you need to be able to know that he does bring the knowledge, and he's done a great job. And this is yet another experience of growing your PLN, because educator out there, hey, administrator right now just got hired for the chair for next year. All of these shows, and Principal Cafele, Sean Hurd, Shika and Tammy, this is all free PD. I know in Texas we're hurting for money. There's every district is laying off teachers. They're million in debt. Millions districts are millions in debt. You don't need to get a PO. You don't need to get an area superintendent to approve it. You don't need the financial officer to approve it. This is all free, and this is high caliber guests on all 4 shows. So please remember, like it and share it. Not like and share it. I don't know about Jimmy. Probably is getting like $1 million check from YouTube. I'm not getting any YouTube money. I'm not getting any Facebook money, because it's all about enhancing our craft. Because sooner or later, these kids will be the future of America, and we need to make sure that we bring the best version of ourselves, because those kids will be leading the country in the future. And that's why this is all for free PD. Like it and share it, and please connect with other people. If you want to be on the show, reach out. We'll find a place for you, because you all have added value. Whether you're a novice educator, you're a cafeteria worker, a bus driver, we've had everybody, Jimmy, here, from superintendents to cafeteria workers, because we're all a tight-knit community of educators that need to enhance the future of this country. So don't forget, join for the Talas show. I'll be presenting at Talas next weekend. So we're going to have presenters coming here and talking about the conference, because it's a niche of educators, Hispanic educators, that are putting it out there to help and it's about everybody. It's not just about Hispanic, but that's the focus of this conference. And that's why we're going to have that show, to enhance the beauty that are these organizations and education. Thank you for being here. Like it and share it. Follow us on YouTube, share that, and promote it. Thank you very much. Have a great week. And strong in the 4th quarter. Jimmy, don't hang up.
God bless. Thank you. And say hi to my friends at Talas, Josh.